Hello chaps, and welcome to my build update number 3 for the Revell 1/72 scale Handley page Halifax B.III, kit number 04936. This is my build entry into the Bomber Command buddy build that's being hosted by myself both on here and on Facebook. There's plenty of time to join in with this build if you want to. It doesn't end till October 31st, so if you want to, leave a comment down below and I'll send you the link. So in the last update, we'd built the model, masked it, and got it ready for painting. So here we go. We've airbrushed the model with a grey Stynel res primer, top and bottom, along with the rudders and the wheels. And then I used a black gloss primer on the wheel struts, the exhausts, and the bombs, because they're going to be painted with some metal colours. The grey primer did bring to my attention that there was some small gaps around the canopies, so they were filled and sanded down and then reprimed in those areas. Next, I pre-shaded the underside with a brown. I want that to contrast with the black undersides. I then moved on to the top side and I pre-shaded that with a dark grey black colour because I want that to contrast with the brown and green camouflage colours on the top. I then went on with painting the underside. I used a flat black mixed with some RLM 65 Hellblau to tone it down and to give it a bluish tint. And I then mixed more of that Hellblau with that mix to tone it down further, and then airbrushed some highlights over that. I then gloss clear coated it, let it dry overnight, and when that was set, I was able to mask over that to prepare it for the topside camouflage colours. But before I can paint the topside camouflage colours, I make my masks. And as I always do, I measure the painting instruction views against the size of the model, create a scale factor. In this case it was 2.94, and I use that factor to zoom those instructions and print off the correct size masks. I then cut out the masks from those prints, and in this instance you can see what would represent the dark green taped to the model, so the spaces in between would be airbrushed with a dark earth brown colour. And for the dark earth brown, I used the Model Masters Dark Earth ANA 617 mixed with some white to tone it down. I then mixed more white with it so it toned down further, and then I airbrushed highlights onto that. And then when that was dry, I removed the masks, took a look at it, thought it looked okay, and then that was sealed in with a gloss clear coat and allowed to dry overnight so I could mask over that, ready for airbrushing the dark green. There you go, the masks are in place on top of that previously painted dark earth. And the spaces in between I airbrushed using a mix of Model Masters Dark Green 4726 with some Humbrol 30 and some white to tone it down. And there's the paints that I used. And after it was airbrushed on that mix, I then toned it down further with more of the white to do highlights. I let that dry, I removed the masks and checked it out. Took a few snapshots of it to see how it looked. I thought it was looking good. And then when that was all dry, I then moved on to sealing that all in with a gloss clear coat. And there's the gloss clear coat applied. I then fitted the vertical stabilizers and rudders because there's some decals going to go on there. And I let the gloss clear coat dry overnight, and the following morning got everything together to start putting decals on. And there you can see the port side wing decals in place, starboard side decals in place on the wing. That's the tail end, upper side decals in place. Port side decals in place on the fuselage there, and that's the rear end of the fuselage, decals in place. Starboard side rear end fuselage, decals in place. And the underside tail. Funny enough, there were no underside roundels for this. They're the underside decals on the front end in place. So then I took some pictures, overall pictures, so you can see how she looks like with all her decals on. It's my favourite stage, putting the decals on after putting all the colours on. Brings the model alive, gives it some identity, makes it look pretty cool. So then I moved on to painting the front end of the engine cowlings using a steel colour, mixed with a little bit of rust to tone it down, make it look sort of coloured, weathered. Be weathered further at the weathering stage. And then moved on to painting the bombs, and those red stripes were added using a very fine brush and brush painted. The exhausts were then painted and left to dry, followed by the wheels and the wheel strut assemblies. I then painted the 4 propellers, and the last thing to be painted was the upper mid gun turret, the rear end gun turret, and the rear wheel. And that was all the painting done. So then it was on to assembling the exhausts. And that's an underside view of the exhausts in place. And then I glued in place those trim tab actuators. And then sealed all the decals in with a gloss clear coat. So that's it for this update, guys. Next update will be build update number 4, and that will cover weathering and final assembly. So until that update, guys, thanks for following along. Thanks for your likes and comments. Much appreciated. So until then, Talio, chocks away.